How's that? Now it's your job. My name is Walt Milne, and I'm a member of the Congregation's Board of Trustees, and I want to welcome you all here. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. So please silence your phones if you haven't already. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley. I'm glad there's a abbreviation for that, UUCSB. So we like to, as our tradition is, we like to welcome any visitors, first time, second time, or new members. Please stand up, introduce yourselves, tell us where you're from. Yes, sir.
I'm Ron Reed. I'm Andy's brother.
Oh.
And I'm here from Albuquerque.
Welcome.
Nice. Anyone else? So in our handout there, we have our 8 principles that unite us as a congregation. You might want to reflect on those. Also, I know when I joined last year, beginning of last year, I got involved with some of the committees, the B&G committee. It's a good group of people that we try to take care of the grounds here inside and out. And I also belong to the men's group that meet every month. And there's a lot of good discussion there, so I would highly encourage any members, new members, to join the committee and get involved. It not only benefits the congregation, but it also, I felt, it benefited me, and I'm sure it would you as well. In our handout that you have, besides the 8 principles that you can look at, there's also a land acknowledgement in there. We recognize this property that we're now stewards of to be the ancestral home of the Cherokee and other indigenous peoples. So you could read that land acknowledgement. Also, I want to mention that if you want any more information, this orange card is in the hymnal, or you can ask one of the members who have an orange name tag. And so that's about it for me. So let's start the service here. Oh, it's up top, okay. I haven't done this before, so just bang it like this. Thank you.
And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Normally, this is the time when when Diana comes up and lights the chalice. But she is not here, or Richard. I'm going to read why we light the chalice and ask Jim if he will come light the chalice. Each Sunday, we light our chalice as the symbol of the light we bring into the world, and the sharing of that light with all those who come through these doors. It is the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. Thank you, Jim. I am now going to share with you some opening words, which are by Randy Schiltz from his book "And the Band Played On," which was the definitive history of the AIDS crisis. The bitter truth was that AIDS did not just happen to America. It was allowed to happen by an array of institutions, all of which failed to perform their appropriate tasks to safeguard the public health. What society judged was not the severity of the disease, the social acceptability of the individuals affected by it. don't offend the gays, and don't inflame the homophobes. Those were the twin horns on which the handling of this epidemic would be torn from the very first day. Inspired by the best intentions, such arguments paved the road toward the destination where good intentions inevitably lead. Now, before we sing our opening hymn, which Linda will introduce, we have lit 2 candles of remembrance. One is for longtime member Emery Underwood, who was, I'm not sure if he was a founder, but he was a very early member of this congregation and a historian of the church. And also for Mary Ann Vale, a musician who performed for us and with Linda.
With the choir too.
And with the choir. So our 2 candles of memorial are lighted and will stay lighted throughout the service. Linda, if you'll introduce the song.
Patchwork quilt is on your insert. That'll be our first congregational hymn. And this song is written in honor of the AIDS quilt. Some may know about it and some maybe not, so I got a few facts about it. It's now contains 50,000 panels on individuals that were sewn just in honor of each one. And it's being kept in San Francisco at the National AIDS Museum. It's considered the largest community arts project in the history of the world. The motto of when it began was, "Let's remember them one at a time." It was conceived by Cleve Jones, an AIDS activist, in 1985, and shortly after that, they began the Names Project to remember each victim of AIDS with their name. I think at the time there were no funeral arrangements, there were no really public acknowledgement. I know you could probably tell more about that. So this was kind of bringing consciousness into light there. And as portions of the AIDS quilt traveled around the country, and my women's choir sang at the AIDS quilt, sang this song in honor of when they appeared in Pack Place. So they've been everywhere, and I think they cover the National Mall with 50,000 panels.
2 times.
Twice, okay, twice the National Mall, okay? So I'm going to give you the first half, we'll go over that, and then we'll go over the chorus, the second half. Okay. I'll play you the verse 1.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, congregation, for taking on a new song and doing such a wonderful job singing. This is the time in our service when we invite each of you, any of you, to come forward and light a candle or drop a stone into the chalice to express a concern, a joy, a sorrow, and silently share that with the congregation. Anyone come forward? And I will light a candle for anyone for all the unspoken joys, concerns, and sorrows. This is now the time when we try to make sure that the work we do here outlasts us and outlives us. As we take an offertory from all of you who wish to give and share your bounty. Thank you, Linda, and thank you all for your generosity. I have known Michael Harney for 25 years, I imagine. He started working at the Western North Carolina AIDS Project in 1993. That was the year I moved back home to Asheville from New York. And I don't remember exactly when we met, but it was several years later. At the time, we always had an ecumenical World AIDS Day service in the 90s and 2000s, and different churches hosted it each year. And Michael was very well known in the community already. He provides outreach and prevention education about AIDS. He provides condom distribution in the gay community and elsewhere, and that's where he got his nickname, the Rubberman. And WNCAP also provides free HIV testing throughout the Western North Carolina region. Michael and his colleagues have developed and they implement a comprehensive harm reduction strategy known as the Needle Exchange Program. Or that was its name, it's now known as the WNCAP Harm Reduction Services. And each month I go over there with empty detergent bottles and cat litter bottles that are heavy plastic with lids, and that's where used needles can go. Now, Michael is also a longtime teacher of Spanish at AB Tech, and you will become friends of his just in engaging with him today. Michael?
Thank you, Andy. That's very kind. It's true. He knew me when I used to have dark hair and no wrinkles, and it's kind of what happens over so much time.
And I have hair, period.
Do I need to put this on or just speak from here? It's okay. It's okay. So this is how I always start off. No matter what group I go to, what opportunity I have to speak in the public, I start this way. Muy buenos días, damas y caballeros. Me llamo Miguel y quiero darles otra perspectiva sobre el VIH-Sida. ¿Hay alguien aquí que habla puramente español? Anybody speak Spanish? Most people say un poquito or something like that. Lo demás va a estar en inglés. The rest will be in English. But I always start off in Spanish to say good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, wherever I might be. And to ask if there's anybody that speaks Spanish to let them know we have materials in Spanish. Though the rest of this will be in English. If you sneeze, I may say salud to your health. I hope that you're healthy, I hope that you're well, that you reach all of your goals. So I have a little test. This might be a little untraditional, but I'm kind of in an untraditional, maybe friendly setting. I want to know for $5, if anybody wants $5 for their cup of coffee at AAA or wherever you go, if you can tell me what the acronym ACT UP stands for. And Andy, you're not allowed to because you invited me here. Anybody know? $5. I oftentimes ask this if I'm at the university setting or I'm speaking to teenagers or something. Do you know the history? We are 43 years now into this epidemic of HIV/AIDS. Anybody? Going once?
Always count the unknown people.
There you go. That's a good one. That's a good one. I'm going to throw my $5 that I would have had for a cup of coffee, I usually say my lunch money, into the offertory here. It stands for the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. These were the original kind of protesters, kind of the original folks who had something to say. They were complaining because the federal government wasn't doing enough around all the people who were getting sick. And like we heard a little bit earlier, and what we heard about Andy, that Andy read, was that we really stigmatized this virus. And sometimes, I can speak for hours, so you have to shut me down, but when we think about seeing this as a biological entity, just trying to survive, HIV does not discriminate. So HIV is what's transmitted. I can't give you AIDS, you can't give me AIDS, even though that's what people said. It's HIV, it's a virus. And like bacteria, parasites, and funguses, they love us, they want to be with us. And they simply look for another human being in which to be transmitted. So had we been more like Australia, no, we're not, but had we been more like Australia and seen this as a major public health event, they nowadays have around 600 or so new HIV infections reported on the whole continent. Anybody have any idea how many we see here? Close to 32,000 new HIV infections, and that's down. That's down in the last 5 years from where it was 40,000 pretty steadily for a number of years. There are thought to be 1,200,000 or so people living with HIV in this country alone, somewhere between 38 and 40 million people worldwide. It's all statistics, right? We don't know exactly. So the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they recommend that if you're between 13 and 64 to be tested, to know your status, to be tested at least once. People say, oh, it's not me, I'm not one of those kind of people. I don't do those kinds of things. If you're human, you may be at risk. I don't know what you do behind closed doors. It's not my business. But when we discount our elders, when we discount someone who lives in a certain neighborhood, when we discount, someone younger or whatever, and think that they might not have been exposed, there are multiple ways that you can be without causing fear. I don't want you to run out to the health department and say, oh my gosh, Michael Harney came in and spoke and I got to get tested for everything. It's not that. It's about being in tune, being knowledgeable, being aware. And that's what World AIDS Day is about, awareness. I thought it was really appropriate that Linda, we didn't talk before all this, that she brought the patchwork song. Here's Cleve Jones nowadays. And I'm going to leave a little packet of information with you. There's some sheets out there, I think, did you put out there? Yeah. So, but this is Cleve Jones. This many years later is a survivor still. And he's visiting the AIDS Quilt Museum in San Francisco here. And if you've never seen it, it is certainly worth looking up and reading a little bit more about it. The idea was to memorialize people, right? You couldn't get cemeteries to allow people with HIV to be buried there. Didn't want to cremate the bodies, and it was real stressful. Salute to your health. And so they created this kind of as a protest, and they put it out on the lawn, and of the mall. It doesn't fit there anymore. There are about 50,000 panels and some 98,000 names. Some of them might have been, the UU Church memorializes this many different people from their congregation, so some of the panels have multiple names on them. I got to create one with the guy who's my boss, my mentor, my friend Marty Prairie Chicken. He taught me more about what it would be like to live with HIV or hepatitis C than anybody's ever been able to, and he died in 2001. And the week before he died, he asked me to promise him that I'd continue to try to educate people, continue to try to distribute condoms, to continue to try to operate what we started in 1994, the Needle Exchange Program of Asheville. I was like, man, Marty, you're too mean to die. I'll be dead way before you, and tripped me up and died the next week. So in his honor, I've been able to go over to Cherokee and teach sex ed to the 9th graders. I've been able to be involved in the early development of their very successful syringe services program. I have been able to do programs at treatment centers like the Analanishki Treatment Center. I do things like that in our community. So if I can be of service, let me know. It doesn't have to be just here, but outside in the community. And so there's still thought to be somewhere between 38 and 40 million people in this world living with HIV. That many people have already died worldwide. We have had about 700,000 people here in this country die over the years. And as I say, HIV doesn't discriminate. Everyone in here, to me, looks like you have HIV. Don't I look like I have HIV to you? We really can't tell. And we don't see the same faces of AIDS that were kind of customary in the old movies and in the early 90s and the mid 80s, those kinds of emaciated people, and they had Kaposi sarcoma and things like that. We don't see that anymore because of these life-sustaining medications. It's incredible science now. People can live completely normal lives, travel, have careers, get pregnant, can breastfeed now with HIV. Imagine that. It wasn't imaginable back then. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or what amount of money or education, HIV simply looks for another human being to be transmitted to. And so, Australia saw this as a major public health challenge, and we stigmatized it here. I'm not one of those kind of people. I don't do those kinds of things. They're not like me. Get away. Bleach it all down. Things like that. That's just not how you get HIV. That somebody sat in the chair next to you, hugged you, kissed you, ate a meal with you, fixed your food, worked with you, You know, it's just not transmitted that way. So to learn a little bit more, I brought a sheet that I've left out in the front there. There's a lot of good information. It might be a little bit Buncombe County centric. So if you're not from here or not going to remain here, maybe you take it as a template back to your own community. I can't do this by myself is what I always say. Speaking of 30, 40 people here at a time, I can't do this if you're not going to talk to your 10 or 15 or 20 colleagues and friends and neighbors and coworkers, the people that you come into contact with. To say this crazy guy named Michael Harney came up talking about HIV and AIDS on World AIDS Day. I found out World AIDS Day is 37 years into the making. Didn't know for 37 years, every December 1st, World AIDS Day is recognized. And oftentimes people wear a red ribbon. Don't see a whole lot of that anymore either. The red ribbon signifies this AIDS memorial. And so if you look at some of the quilt panels, you'll see a red ribbon on there. And that's what it's about. I don't know all the colors to all the ribbons. Somebody should think about making a poster with all the colors so you can identify what's that for, what's that about, that sort of thing. But there's a lot of websites on here. I would challenge you, not just to encourage you, but challenge you to look at 3 or 4 or 5 of those. Spend 10 or 15 minutes on 3 or 4 or 5 of those websites and see if there's not something interesting. There are things for young people. There are things for religious communities. There are things for people who speak other languages. There are people who need harm reduction issues. There's just a lot of good information. It's not comprehensive, so if something's missing on this sheet, let me know. I like to learn something new every day too. But I think that over the years, the gift that's been given to me, I don't have a degree in public health. I don't have a degree in science. I have a degree in Spanish and business administration. But HIV kind of encompasses all of it. It is business. There's a lot of money involved if you're an economics major. You want to write? You're a writer? There's lots of literature. And the band played on, maybe you're a film producer. Not only the book, but it was made into a film. So if you don't want to read the book, watch the 2-hour film and get an idea of who all the players were. Dr. Fauci, as controversial as it's been for the last couple of years or whatever, an amazing kind of core entity related to HIV and AIDS and the infectious disease community and how the science came about and the research. A visual that I saw kind of during COVID. So first of all, I was thinking everything was pre and post COVID, and now it's pre and post Helene on top of all the COVID stuff. But when COVID was just coming out and it was kind of starting to mutate, there was this in a science magazine, they showed kind of the mutations where they look like this with COVID. And they compared it to the flu. You know, we get H1, HN1, 3, whatever it is. The best guess that your flu shot this year is that it's going to take care of the most people that might be exposed to this virus. And its mutations look like this. So this is COVID, this is flu, and then HIV looks like this because of all the different mutations over the 43 years. And so when people are like, why are we spending any more money on this? Why can't they get a cure? Why isn't there a vaccine? It's because it's that many mutations, and there are clades and subclades of HIV. And there's HIV 1 and 2. We don't see a lot of HIV 2 in this country. But around the world, it's different, and the different clades and subclades, and then the different communities. And how do you get this information out in the multiple languages? And how do you give people confidence to try to be in a clinical trial? To try some medication, to try a new vaccine. And yet, over the years, people are working on that. And they're trying to make a difference and trying to eradicate this virus. So there's this whole elimination of HIV epidemic, EHE. It's this part of the National HIV/AIDS strategy. If you're not familiar with it, I'm going to leave all this with this packet. You can dig through it or make a folder and, on your leisure time, page through it. Let me know what I can do to find information for you. If you have further questions, I think we're going to do a little bit of a question and answer here, which may be a little unusual to you on a Sunday. But the concept is to get 95% of people, this is a worldwide, this is UNAIDS. Okay, ours is 90% here in this country, but 95% of people with HIV, to get them tested, to know their status. And of the 95% of people who know their HIV status, to get them into care. To get the medications to them. And of the 95% of people who get into care, taking the medications, that 95% of those people suppress the viral load. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, people with HIV, when they go to ask their doctor, how am I doing, doc? How's my CD4 count? How's my viral load? 2 different numbers, 2 different comparisons in the laboratory. So in a normal, healthy immune system, you might count your CD4 cells at about 1,000. That's a reasonable, healthy person, 1,000 white blood cells. They fight off colds and coughs and sneezes and whatever else is out there, stuff that we're surrounded by. Your immune system is amazing. HIV beats down the immune system, that's what it does. So the viral load, the HIV, the virus itself, looks for the white blood cells to get in so it can reproduce. That's how it does it. If it can't get into the white blood cells, then it dies off. So someone with HIV goes to the doctor, I don't want to take the medication, I don't like it, I don't feel good, or whatever. Their viral load might be measured in the 8 or 10 or 12 million range for this drop of blood. I'm going to just say it in that most basic of ways. It's per milliliter, but it's a drop of blood, let's say. How many viral particles do I have in that? 8 or 10 or 12 million? I'm probably going to get sick over time. If I were to take those medications that block HIV from reproducing, it suppresses the virus. And technically, in a laboratory setting, it's called undetectable. Under 200 viral particles versus 8 or 10 or 12 million, you're considered undetectable. And if you're undetectable, you're untransmittable. You won't be transmitting HIV, particularly to your sexual partners, is how it's worded. And so the effort is to get all those people tested, to know their status, get them into care, to get them to take the medications to suppress the virus, and then you have that much less virus in the world to potentially be transmitted. That's the concept of eradicating HIV. It will never be gone. There are millions of people living with it right now. But if you can bring down, the number of new infections to just minimal numbers, 32,000, maybe we can get it to 5,000. Maybe we get to 3,000 a year. Maybe we can get it to 600 like Australia. But if you're not talking about cultural issues around the world, and young women and girls, highly at risk. I'm trying to scare you, I'm trying to inform you. I want you to know there are so many things that we can be doing. And instead of judging, and instead of stigmatizing, and instead of ridiculing people, understanding it's a virus trying to survive. So these new medical technologies are amazing to block HIV from reproducing, allowing people to suppress the virus so you don't have that much virus in your body, your immune system can, be healthy, and they're expected to live. People, 70, 75 years of life. If you go see your doctor, take your medication adherently, be healthy as you can. I've seen some people that you thought, wow, how does the body ever put up with all of that? And still are surviving. And it's not going to be HIV that takes them out because they've been able to suppress that virus. That's the new technology. There's a lot going on out there. I'm really honored to be here today to even present this to you. I don't know that we hear a whole lot about this in the news much. Anybody hear this is World AIDS Day today in the news this morning? I didn't hear it on the NPR, didn't even play it this morning, And I saw my name and that on the sign out there. I didn't see every church up and down, or every congregation up and down the road acknowledge World AIDS Day today. So thank you. Thank you. It's really important. And people have confided in me and spoken to me this morning and told me about some of their experiences in life. And, it affects us, all of us, economically, politically, in literature, in medicine, in just all sorts of ways, the community. And I'm at your service. It has been my honor all these years. I don't know why. I went to make a donation to the Western North Carolina AIDS Project, and this guy was like, yeah, I will take your donation, but is that your old pickup truck out there? Can you help us move this lady's furniture? And you sit at the Bell Share booth, and do you mind volunteering? You want a job? And I was like, yeah, sure, doing what? He said, street outreach. I said, okay, I'll do it. What's that? I didn't know what he was talking about. And that's where my history here started around this. And yes, I teach Spanish at AB Tech and at Blue Ridge, and been at WNCAP all these years. But this community is amazing. Ooh, it's amazing, all that we're doing now together and we've had to do. But I'm very honored to be here, and I thank you, Andy, for even inviting me here. I'll leave this information. Take with you what you will. The themes right now for World AIDS Day are two. One is take the rights path. That's the UN AIDS theme, that is to take the human rights path. People have rights to be human On this planet, we are sharing this space and place called Earth. I don't have to love you. You don't have to love me. But if I can help you at the door, let me help, something falls on the floor, I can help you pick it up. If we could take these masks of skin and hair off, we'd find that biologically we are much more similar than we are different. Can't we just get along? Human rights. If you're human, you're a human being on this earth. As much as any other creature that's on this earth, you have a right to dignity, to life, to support. And the World AIDS Day theme in this country is collective action, sustaining, accelerate HIV progress. That's what they're talking about. This country is amazing. There are a lot of things we could do to make it better, but it has given a lot to science, to philanthropy, to healthcare, and people just don't get it. We're really involved worldwide, and the needs are still there. The world needs us. It is a vast need. It's not just local, it's not just regional, it's not just national. This is international, it's World AIDS Day. And I thank you all so very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. I am going to read something that we actually have in the Union Hymnal. It's a reading by Kathleen McTeague, who was formerly the minister of the UU Society of New Haven, which isn't in New Haven, it's in Hamden, Connecticut. And she wrote a book called Shine and Shadow, Collected Meditations. After I read this, I'm going to make Michael put on the headset and entertain questions from you for him, and I'll bring the microphone around. This is from Kathleen McTeague, from her short piece, They Are With Us Still. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us, it is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by a vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them, we choose the deeper path of living. Now, for yourselves and for others, speak out and name those in your lives who are gone, and whose memory lends strength to your lives. I will name Raul, and Ray, and Jesse, and Danny, 4 of my close friends. Speak up, speak out your names if you will.
Jeffrey Gorilla.
Chuck.
Dan.
Thank you. Now, any questions for Michael? And I will bring the mic to you.
Like a lot of Americans, we learn about new drugs by TV commercials. Like, we know all about ED and PMS and all these crazy things. And I see commercials for the HIV drugs, and I'm wondering if how accessible they are. Is it covered by Medicaid, Medicare, commercial health insurance? Like, are people actually able to have access to these drugs if they're just a regular working person with health insurance or Medicare or Medicaid?
That's a great question. Can you hear me? Is this
No.
one?
Hold on, I fell asleep back here. Try that.
It's still on? There? Can you hear me now? Yeah. Not the funniest thing, I don't have a cell phone. I'm old timey. I drive that 86-foot Toyota pickup truck out there, so I don't have I'm not technological. To answer your question, yes, the medications are available to anybody. Magic Johnson takes the same medications that anybody around here would take. And I know people think that he's special because he's got $1 million or whatever, and he gets certain medications, but his medications are the exact same medications that anybody can take. They are covered by what's called AIDS Drug Assistance Program. It's a federal pool of money. It's matched by state dollars, and every state has a different program that they match. So if you're in a big wealthy state, you might be eligible if you live, over 500% of poverty, that kind of thing. In some states, it's 150% of poverty, you're eligible to the medications. There were several years ago, I don't know, maybe between 10 and 15 years ago, there was a waiting list for those medications. It was a nightmare and kind of a scandal. Many of the southern states, so over half of people living with HIV live in the southeastern region of our country. If there's a map at AIDS View, you'll see on the list of those websites, there's a map that shows where the highest numbers of HIV are, STDs, but it's also where there's high poverty and less, access to all sorts of things. It's a southeastern region here. But even here, people can access HIV medications. We have case managers at the Western North Carolina AIDS Project. About 400 clients come to our agency throughout the year. About 2,000 people live in this 18-county Western North Carolina region. That's where we serve people. But about 400 of them come to the case managers who help them get doctor's appointments, transportation, a food box at Loving Food Resources, for example, things like that happen. And so case manager, they're called medical case managers now. It's very different than it used to be. Some of the old timers that are what are called long-term survivors now, they're living 30, 35, close to 40 years with HIV. Not many of them, but some of them. They remember what the AIDS Project was like. We did massages. It was more homey. People came in and just hung out with the receptionist and laughed and played. And you got a lot of news. Well, how's Billy? How's Sally? I heard they're in the hospital. Should we go visit? Stuff like that. It doesn't really happen like that anymore. It's medical. They want you to put the money into the doctor's appointment and transportation to the doctor's appointment, things like that. But yes, everybody with HIV is eligible for the medications. There are patient assistance programs. If you have good insurance, great. But if you don't have insurance at all, or you are Medicaid or Medicare or recipient of those safety nets, you can still get the medication. Yes.
You mentioned that, excuse me, the suppression of the drugs is really good, right? And you also mentioned that there's no cure, but is there progress towards a vaccine, like the HPV vaccine or polio vaccine? Is there any work? I'm sure there is work, but what's the progress on it?
There is, and it's good. I probably should have mentioned PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis. That's another component. So there's a whole armamentarium of tools to use. It's not just abstinence, not just condoms, not being faithful, that kind of stuff. But the vaccine is hard, and that's part of that visual of the COVID versus the flu versus HIV. They can't find a vaccine that covers all of that and all of the clades and subclades of HIV. So the mRNA research that got us COVID vaccinations came out of HIV research. And what they've learned from the COVID time period, the vaccinations, is going back into HIV work. It's really complex. And I know a lot of people, sometimes they'll tell me, I know the government's involved and they're trying to kill off my community and they don't want to they just want the money or whatever. I said, well, even if we find out 50 years from now it was a population control mechanism, trick them. Don't get it. It's preventable. If you have it, take your medications and reduce the burden. The medications now are not like they were with people taking the medication being so sick and having to take it 3 times a day, with food or without food, or in the morning, not with this, not with that. Now you take one pill, go to bed with it, wake up, you took your pill for the day already. Very few side effects. It's mostly cardiovascular, renal, your kidneys, and some lipid-related issues mostly. Kidney function, liver issue, some cardiovascular stuff. That's what people's side effects are nowadays.
Yeah, Michael, I spoke to you about a friend of mine back in the 80s who got AIDS through a bad needle, and he passed away in 84. And I'm just wondering, he offered himself as a guinea pig, and they sent him all over the place to experiment with drugs on him for future cures. Nowadays, does it matter as far as the medication if you get it from a needle or if you get it sexually transmitted? Is one easier to treat than the other, or are they the same?
That's a good point. They are the same. So that's interesting about the needles. So over the history of HIV, in the early epidemic, about 33% of new HIV infections were related to inaccessibility to sterile injection equipment. We now see it's down to about 7% among men who have sex with men and also are injecting drugs. Sometimes it's another 4% bump. But in a general way, the numbers are down to about 7%. And that has to do with harm reduction. It's controversial. It is. I mean, I could be really controversial here if you want to talk about it, but needle exchange has reduced that. I look out, and y'all look like you're needle users too. I don't know what you do. That's not my business. You want to talk about it with me? Feel confident you can talk about anything with me, and I don't talk about your business. But the truth is that some people use needles for a lot of different reasons. It's not just diabetics, but sometimes diabetics don't have access to needles either. And my grandmother uses the same needle multiple times in a day. No wonder she gets an abscess. If she were putting that directly into her vein, that would be a whole nother reason that you don't want the contaminants that go right through your bloodstream into, endocarditis and then, hepatitis and all of that. So it is the same virus, whether by needle, by sexual. We don't have a lot of blood transmission of it in terms of blood donors, and our blood bank is really safe. So that's important to know. Yeah, but the treatment is the same.
My question is more on the immune system. Let me just say it. I'm on a whole food, plant-based diet. I'm wondering if, as opposed to the standard American diet, I'm told that the standard American diet leads to standard American diseases. Is AIDS in that category? In other words, are those on a healthy diet likely to be resistant to any kind of virus, be it AIDS or something else?
Sure, that's a great question. Here, by the way, is a quinoa avocado salad recipe and superfoods, fruits that you should incorporate into your diet in the magazine with Cleve Jones. So there's a recipe in there. So yeah, obviously, food is important, and nutrition is important, and exercise is important, and having water is important. But sometimes people don't have access to it. So if your EBT card provides you access to a convenience store and all you can get is what you can get, at least you're eating something. Maybe it's chemical-based and not plant-based and not as healthy. To take time and look and see what I've been granted in life. Like sometimes I say that if I could give back this much of all the good I've had in the world would change dramatically. And I'm talking about just that much of what I've experienced. So some of us have access to Whole Foods. I'm talking about the market downtown. Some of us can go to Fresh Market. Some of us can go to the tailgate markets. And it seems a little high priced, but it's a balance. I spent $20 yesterday at the UNC tailgate market, and I got some good things. They were tasty and homemade and fresh right out of the garden, but not everybody has that. Does it change my virus if I have the virus? And I will disclose that I don't. I don't usually disclose that. But for somebody who does have HIV, it's important to be nutritionally fed. Loving Food Resources does that. That's one of the food banks here. And we're lucky to have them because they provide boxes of food every week. Do people like that? Maybe they do. You like Brussels sprouts? I do. You like lima beans? I do. You want beets? Give them to me then. You know? And so what you can do with your body is important. And what you have an opportunity to do with your body is important. Not everybody has access to it. Not everybody has access to a meal a day. HIV still needs to be suppressed by the mechanics of the medication. And people have told me, I had this terrible experience. This guy came in to get tested. Didn't tell me that he already knew his HIV status. He came in because he told me his congregation had laid hands on him and had cured him. And it wasn't until after, like, I was getting ready to show him his results that were positive, because once you're HIV positive, there have only been 7 people cured of it, and that's a whole other story. I was like, oh my gosh, no, your test is positive. I'm sorry, you still have HIV. And it like devastated him. And I was like, so you can do, community's good, congregation's good, food, water, all of it's good, but it is the medication that is life-sustaining at this point. Without a vaccination, without a cure, it is about prevention and treatment and suppressing the virus at this point. That's where it is.
Thank you. We don't have much more time, so I want to invite you all again to thank Mike. And now, if you will rise, as you are willing and able, and sing hymn number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
We are a gentle, angry people.
Reverend Maureen Kaloran, the former minister of the Asheville Hindu congregation.
Our service is ended. Now your service has begun. Go out from this place, into your neighborhoods, into the world, and share our message, your truth, and the value of the work we do to make the world a better place. May it be so.